Daniel Bryan has kind of had a tumultuous 2015 in my opinion, considering considering when in December 29th, that 2014 episode of Raw, Bryan had declared he would return to the ring and compete in the Royal Rumble match next year for this year. In an interview, he reportedly told management that he wished to be the face of SmackDown to increase the show's viewership. And I was like, okay, like there were two things that came to mind. For the Royal Rumble match, I knew, yeah, it's going to be a disaster. Like, these fans want Daniel Bryan, they're going to reject Roman Reigns, and it's going to be a complete disaster. And regarding the face of SmackDown, I was like saying, so let me see if I got this correct. He wants to be the face of SmackDown to increase the show's viewership, whereas on Raw, he could be on there all the time and just skip SmackDown. Remember that part where I said he's humble? Because he's freaking humble. So, Bryan returned to the ring on December 15th, 2015, in an episode of SmackDown with his opponent being Kane. So, yeah. Disqualified because the Authority interfered, and later in the episode, Bryan won a six-man tag team match main event, so basically, who cares? And on the next week's episode of SmackDown, despite more interference in the Authority, Bryan defeated Kane in a no DQ match main event to keep his Royal Rumble match spot. So then here comes the Royal Rumble, and everyone in Philadelphia is hoping, please let it be Bryan, because there were reports of conflict of interest going on in WWE. One side of the locker room wanted Roman Reigns to win, the other side of the locker room wanted Daniel Bryan to win. Like, there was a huge division going on, I think, and heading into that match, management was saying we're favoring Roman Reigns over Daniel Bryan, and Bryan entered the match at number 10, got eliminated by Bray Wyatt in the first half, right before Roman Reigns came out, and yeah, I called it. It was going to be a complete disaster. Um, yep, I called it. I freaking called it. It's going to be a disaster. And this is where I start not liking the fans of Daniel Bryan. Like, I wasn't saying, according to at least NXT over Raw, saying, oh, I hate Daniel Bryan because of his fans. No, I was still a huge fan of Bryan, but I started not liking his fans a bit because a lot of them were becoming the very thing they hated in management, where they over rely on one guy to be the top guy instead of having multiple guys. Because look at what happened with John Cena. He gets injured, and then all of a sudden, it's panic mode! It's mass hysteria panic! In WWE management because they don't have a replacement. So, yeah. So the fans, after Bryan was eliminated by Bray Wyatt, lashed out on virtually everyone else, including Roman Reigns. And while they did kind of want guys like Ziggler, Wyatt, and Ambrose to win, they weren't Daniel Bryan, and they were also kind of lashed at. So everyone was wondering what's Bryan going to do now, since he's no longer in the match, and what's he going to do now for WrestleMania. Well, it got reported that Bryan actually went to WWE management and requested, "Hey, can I fight Dolph Ziggler in the first match to be the first match to open the show at WrestleMania?" And I was like, "Wait a second. You do realize he could have asked for the title shot match? Like, he could have been inserted into a triple threat match and done yet another Occupy Raw." And that actually, like, I just kept saying, he's so humble. He's so very, very humble. So Daniel Ryan did this interview on the closed-in Raw episode that they couldn't do an actual show because of the snowstorm that happened. So they did some interviews and recording. I didn't really watch that much. I just stayed around for the ending of the show. But I think Bryan was kind of peeved off a bit how management was lacking. But considering it got leaked that it was scripted and how he was told, "Don't say wrestling," and that pissed everyone off because, well, because reasons. So, on the live edition of SmackDown on January 29th, Bryan ended his feud with Kane by defeating him in a casket match, or so to speak, since management sends Stephanie McMahon say, "Do you realize he was in a casket? He could have he could have run out of oxygen." And I was like, that's the point of a casket match. What the F is wrong with you lot with your logic, WWE? So, ignoring that, Fastlane is approaching, and everyone's wondering what's going to happen now, who's going to be in the main event. And, like, here's what I found out. The original plan was to have Bryan go put Bray Wyatt over at Fastlane to prepare him for his big war with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, once again proving everyone that Bryan is humble. And Bryan defeats Seth Rollins in the main event of Raw on February 2nd to earning the right to face Roman Reigns at Fastlane, so change of plans. The winner of the Fastlane match would challenge Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31 for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And yeah, this is where everyone was hoping Bryan would win and Roman Reigns didn't deserve it. And I'm like, so you want Bryan to get killed? Because here's the thing, I would have not complained as much about Bryan winning the Royal Rumble if it was well deserved. Okay, like Ryan Delbert made an article saying that if he was to rebook the Royal Rumble, it would be Daniel Bryan winning the match. However, I wrote in a comment section saying, okay, if it was unavoidable, I would have had Bryan come back into the ring, congratulate Roman Reigns, and because I felt like Bryan is the only one that could talk sense into these fans because, well, it's the fan base of Philadelphia. They can only be it's hard to convince them. So I thought maybe Bryan can convince them. So I thought heading into Fastlane, I was like, so Bryan's going to convince these fans Roman Reigns can hang with the top dogs. I certainly believed it. So they had an awesome match, and it was possibly their best match to date against each other. Like, they fought 2 times beforehand, and they were awesome matches, but this was possibly Reigns' best match with Bryan. They have not made one bad match. So after Fastlane came to an end, Bryan became involved in the Intercontinental Championship picture for WrestleMania, where he was one of the multiple participants who came to possess champion Bad News Barrett's title belt while defeating Barrett in non-title matches, proving Barrett is incompetently booked. And Bryan announced that he would enter a multi-man ladder match that opened the show for the Intercontinental Championship on March 12th episode of SmackDown, after Bryan was pinned twice within a week by fellow ladder match entrant Dolph Ziggler. The Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter report that WWE has made it clear where Bryan stands after starting to lose regular now. And I was like, well, Bryan could have obviously done something about this. Let's see. Maybe Bryan, I'm just saying, maybe Bryan could have obviously done something to change everything, but he was just too humble about it. So, anyways, WWE's handling of Bryan at this point since his return was being widely criticized. Dave Snitcher, a Pro Wrestling Insider, questioned bringing Bryan back to the Rumble in the first place if there was no intention of letting Bryan win. Benjamin Tucker, a Pro Wrestling Torch, said watered down Bryan's babyface character into sneaky, backstabbing, cheap, aggravating jerk for the feud against Roman Reigns. And Mike Tedesco of WrestleView wrote in March that WWE killed Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton dead in the last 2 months. It takes a special bunch of nincompoops to pull that off. Let's see, and said that Bryan was being labeled a quote turd, was asking the fans to disbelieve what they see with their own eyes, and this is what Jake Barrett said on ProWrestling.net, saying that being labeled as a turd by several wrestlers on SmackDown, which I was like, okay, that was somewhat out of nowhere, was asking fans to disbelieve what they see with their own eyes, and will do nothing to calm down the conspiracy theorists who insist WWE is intentionally cooling off Bryan to make Roman Reigns look better in comparison. And I was like, have you ever considered Bryan maybe wanting to not be in the spotlight because he wants to share it like The Undertaker did back in the Attitude Era? that's impossible. Um, okay, let's read this other piece from Wrestling Observer. Zach, whatever, I can't pronounce his last name, was dumbfounded and disheartened at that after returning from a very serious injury. WWE's bright idea is to put Bryan in one of the most dangerous matches possible at WrestleMania while having dragged Bryan down to levels of R-Truth and Stardust. Remember when R-Truth was Awesome Truth and there was the conspiracy theorists storyline they were doing, and Stardust was feuding with Goldust, and when he was Cody Rhodes? Uh-huh. Yeah, I think we forgot about that too. Dirty logic, everyone. So Bryan won the Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match at WrestleMania 31 after taking out Dolph Ziggler after several headbutts, and I was like, when I saw it, I was like, do you really want to risk your injury again? Like, you just got back, and like, I'm glad you're not fighting Brock Lesnar because, let's be honest, with WWE's fetish for exploiting your injury to heels and Brock Lesnar's stiff style and German suplexes, you probably would get killed. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. And Bryan also became a Grand Slam champion because WWE kind of changed things up. I think it's mostly because they wanted to make Cena look strong for God knows what reason. And at the Raw after WrestleMania, Bryan got his wish to fight Dolph Ziggler in his first successful title defense. However, after the match, Bryan and Ziggler would be attacked, only for a new Sheamus to come back and then attack both of them. Bryan would finally fight Sheamus again, fulfilling Vince McMahon's fetish fantasy for this match. On SmackDown, would lose by countout interfered. And during the match, Bryan suffered an unplanned cut on his forehead, which caused him to bleed and later acquired stitches for the wound. So, yeah. Um, then everything starts to fall apart after that. Following the April 14th SmackDown, WWE pulled Bryan from wrestling on the remainder of WWE's touring of Europe for precautionary measures. Bryan's scheduled title defense against Barrett was later canceled because Bryan was medically unable to compete. Less than a week later, WWE stopped advertising Bryan from all future live events and television tapings, and it was reported that it wasn't because of Sheamus that he got injured. It was apparently because in a live house show, Dolph Ziggler accidentally injured, or Bryan accidentally, accidentally botched something, and Bryan got hurt because of it, got a concussion. And I'm surprised WWE didn't punish Dolph Ziggler because they'll punish Kevin Owens because of his weight. They'll punish Rusev because he's in a real life relationship with Lana. So really punishing Dolph Ziggler, who management has clearly shown they don't like because, well, like Cesaro, he labels himself as a wrestler, though claims that he intends to deliver and does better than everyone else. So, yeah. So after about a month off of television, Bryan returned to television on Raw on May 11th. However, he announced that after having undergone a MRI, he would be out of action for an unknown period of time and could possibly have to retire. The nature of his injuries, however, were not revealed. Therefore, he relinquished the Intercontinental Championship. On the Elimination Chamber pre-show later, Bryan stated that he would eventually wrestle again, and reportedly WWE was not happy that he said that because they wanted him to keep quiet, and they were kind of hoping that he probably wouldn't come back because WWE hates you. In July, Bryan was revealed that his injury was a concussion-related symptom, and he was waiting for WWE to clear him. So that ends Bryan's role for 2015 in wrestling terms. He would later put over Ryback and do the Feed Me More chants, and showing once more, even injured, Bryan will still put wrestlers over better than John Cena ever would. And And here's the thing I kept finding out. There were various reports going on about Bryan, and the reason why I didn't make more videos about Bryan's health is because there would be too many videos to make. So I thought, let's sum it all up here. WWE has been holding Bryan off of coming back because they're being a little protective about him. Though really, I think they just want him not to come back and steal Roman Reigns' spotlight, most likely. Because Bryan has reportedly said, "Oh, I've been cleared by 2 doctors. I'm waiting for a third one who is most likely going to clear me." In fact, I think that since that was months ago when he said that, I think he has been cleared. WWE, however's doctors won't clear me, and I'm considering leaving the company. Like, I want to leave the company so I can wrestle again, but they won't let me out of my contract until it's expired, and I don't know how long his contract is. And last but not least, Vince McMahon's the one that is like, should we do this? Should we not? Like, like by now his concussion has to have been cleared up, and if this is because of his neck injury, then here's the advice: don't put him with Brock Lesnar or put him in death-defying matches. Okay, that's a good compromise. And Bryan reportedly saying that he's nearing a compromise with WWE to return to the ring, I think, but I don't know what it is, so we'll have to wait and see. Sean's View Entertainment reported that WWE is considering having Bryan be a part-time wrestler, where he comes like have an HBK style schedule where he would show up for these numerous days, then take a bunch of time off, and then come back again and do a rotating style way to compete, or do an RVD like contract where he shows up for 90 days, then leaves for 90 days, and comes back for 90 days. So we don't know what's going to happen to Bryan after this. So best of luck to Bryan. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate, and stay tuned for more.